Thank you all for joining. My name is Irene Veith. I'm the outbound product manager for CWM, and we also have Lillian Yang, who is our inbound product manager. So today we're going to be kind of starting with the basics of what is CWM. And so if you're totally new to CWM, that is great. We'll also see a demo from Lillian, as well as talk about how to implement CWM and our use cases. And then if you are familiar with CWM, you'll also see some of our newer features that we just released in our Zurich store release, which is available now. So if you're familiar, you'll kind of see some of the new things, and then also we'll finish with a little bit of our roadmap, and so you'll see that as well. All right, so first, what is CWM? So CWM is a collaborative hub for knowledge workers to plan, visualize, and manage work with their teams. There's some of the kind of high-level components of CWM are spaces. So spaces are where you bring your teams together. And then within those spaces, you can create boards and docs. Boards are kind of where you pull in your tasks. You can create customizations like custom fields and automations as well as templates. And you also can bring in other types of work here as well and see all the work that's assigned to you or your team in one single dashboard. And this work can also be aligned to your strategic goals and portfolios. With collaborative docs, you can collaboratively edit a document together, as well as have assist with support from Now Assist to summarize your docs or turn your docs into action items. We have many resources on our community site to kind of walk through these capabilities more, and then Lillian will show them more in the demo. So please make sure you check out those. Everything's really going to be linked in our quick start guide on community. So really what we're hoping to deliver with CWM is flexibility for end user teams. These might be knowledge workers. These are teams that are doing non-project work or agile planning, and giving them a tool that they can adapt to the way that they work so that it's actually truly a helpful tool for them to get their work done and not simply another checkbox or, another place to do their work. It feels like a seamless tool that's connected to the work that they're already doing on the Now platform. And then the benefit for kind of at the enterprise level is that it provides visibility into the status of that work so that you don't have the actual work delivery lost in a different system or you're managing multiple systems, as well as keeping that work aligned to your strategic goals, keeping it in a portfolio. So we really hope to reduce the swivel chair effect for teams and help consolidate work on a single platform so that you don't lose the context of that. All right, and with that, I'll pass it off to Lillian for our demo.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Today, we'll be demoing the journey of Aaron Peterson, who is a senior infrastructure engineer as part of a data center ops team. And his team struggles with juggling day-to-day ops tasks, change implementations, and urgent incidents. These are all currently tracked across different tools, and it's really hard for him and his team to prioritize. They get overloaded, and they can't confidently say when they'll deliver that work. So with CWM and connected work and agile planning, Aaron will be able to surface up any task record, such as incidents, changes, problems using connected work. He'll be able to time box his delivery for sprints for better focus, productivity, and predictability. And he'll be able to balance his team workload with capacity planning across different work types, and all while working in one place without having to switch between multiple workspaces. With that, I'll jump right into our demo. So Aaron typically starts his day in my work where he's able to get a view of all the tasks that he's assigned to. And you can see that he's overdue on everything because he can't quite get a handle of everything he's assigned to. So let's organize his work a little bit. We're going to go into the space that he's created with his team. So he's created this space called the Data Center Ops space, and he has lots of different things that he's organized here, a board to organize the tasks, different documents that his team works on. And within this space, he's able to share access to different team members, right? So he can add other team members or groups to get access and change the level of access they have. So we're going to share this space with some additional people who might be collaborating with Aaron. Now, jumping into our task board, Um, you'll see here that Aaron and his team manage lots of different tasks. They may be doing tasks such as updating asset tags for new inventory, creating racking diagrams, inspecting power units. They also get change requests such as adding new network switches. Aaron also gets assigned to incidents, problems, changes. So let's see how we can bring that work into CWM. Starting with our August release, we have introduced the Connected Work module, which will allow you to bring in any task record across ServiceNow into CWM. So if Aaron wants to bring an incident, he simply has to choose the incident table and add in the filter criteria that brings the relevant incidents for his team. So he might filter this to any incidents that are assigned to the data center ops team. And you can add in any filter criteria. And we're going to go do the same for problems. So any problems that are assigned to the data center ops team. And when we see how many records that brings in, that's 2 records. So it's going to bring in initially those any records that fit that filter criteria. So you see here 2 problems and 2 incidents have been added. This will continuously sync in the background. So every time Aaron lands on this board, it'll show him the latest and greatest. And what's happening here is we're actually bringing in the actual record into this board so that Aaron can look at all the details of this problem record, update it directly in the update the record directly in this space. And we also have all the ACLs in place. So if, all for his team members, those who have view access or edit access is all dependent on their roles and the level of access they have to these different work types. Additionally, we can use the flexibility of CWM to add additional attributes to the work we're doing. So for example, if Aaron wants to add new columns, he might want to add a label column, and he's going to say, type of work. And he might say, this is operations, and I have some maintenance work. And then this is like, I need to do let's see, this is business related, right? So then I can use this new custom column I've created and start adding this across my daily tasks as well as the incidents and problems that I brought in. And I can add any type of custom column here. So if I want to link out to supporting documentation, I might add a new URL column. And so I can add as many custom columns as I need to effectively manage this work. Now that this work is brought in, I can also work the way I want by managing this work in different views. So if I want to work in a list view and start stack ranking things, if incidents have a really quick SLA, I might tackle that first and move some of the problem records up. I can also manage it in a Gantt view to see the timeline of work. Kanban view, so I can start moving things in a Kanban lane. And if I needed to do sprint planning, I can manage the different views I have using my settings, right? So if I don't use Kanban for my team, I might turn that off. And maybe in my Gantt. So let's look at the sprint planning view. This is how Aaron is going to time box his work. So going into this backlog, we're going to focus just on the backlog right now. So I'm going to toggle into my full backlog view and also dismiss my navigation. So Aaron's going to first stack rank his work according to priority, capacity, right? And so we're going to organize our backlog, and then we're going to toggle into that sprint planning view and create our first sprint. So sprint 1, and our capacity for our team is 30 points, and we do a 2-week duration for sprints. So we'll create our first sprint, and Aaron likes to plan a couple sprints at a time, so let's go ahead and add a couple more sprints. When we add a new sprint, they're automatically enumerated, as well as they carry over the details of the previous sprint, so the same duration and the same capacity. Now Aaron's ready to slot in work, so we'll start moving our incidents in that we need to tackle right away. We might start investigating this problem during this sprint, and some of our lower priority items like a documentation or one of those change requests will move to the following sprint. And we can start putting story points and other details so that we can plan capacity. So this incident's going to take the team 10 points, 5 points here, and another 5. When we add connected work items into our sprint planning into CWM, we add 3 fields, which is our sprint field, our story points, and acceptance criteria. So you have the option of planning in an agile manner if your team works in that fashion. And once we've finished planning our sprint, we'll go ahead and start that sprint, and we'll go into the sprint view to focus on the current sprint, or we can start moving through items in our Kanban view. We can also turn on a horizontal lane and sort by sprint so we can focus on what we're doing during sprint 1. Um, so as we work through those items and complete this, we will complete the sprint. And any open items, we have the option of moving it to our Sprint 2 or into our backlog. So we'll move any open items to Sprint 2 and then also create a retro board. So we'll call this Sprint 1 Retro, and we can use any template. So if your team has a regular process for running retros, you can quickly set up a template and reuse it each time. So we'll complete that sprint, and you'll see that all those items were now moved to Sprint 2. And if we open up our navigation, that Sprint Run retro board has been created, and my team can start giving feedback on what went well and what needs improving for the next sprint. So you can see Aaron was able to flexibly manage different items that came into his board, whether that's using a list view or sprint planning. Some other capabilities of CWM include our automations. So let's take a look at our automations. I can set up really simple automations to reduce the manual updating of tasks, right? So for example, I can set up an automation where when the priority changes to critical, update the assign to Abby, because Abby handles all the critical tasks. So I'm going to delete this one. And let's pull up that priority field. That might be actually, there we go. And we're going to move it all the way to the top so I can see it. And we're going to change this to critical, and you can see that's automatically reassigned to Abby. Another great way to use automations is for notifications and emails. So you might want to send a notification to your team members before a task is due. So 3 days before the go live date, send a notification to whoever's assigned to that task, right? And I can also save these tasks as a template. So if I have my custom column set up the way I want, I have a regular set of processes and tasks, I can save this as a template to use for next time. And whenever I create a board, let's try that. We'll create a new board and use a template. So I have a couple here. I'm going to use our basic project management template. And we can create a board with the view and settings that I like. We can also use docs to gather documentation around the things our team's working on. So you saw earlier that Aaron manages different tasks like rack layout diagrams, hardware refreshes. So he can use his documents to track the work that his team is doing, give more information to his team. And within these documents, he's able to mention other records that are related. He can mention any record in ServiceNow. So I might tag related tasks as well as people who might be working on that. So I might ask Abby to add your thoughts below. And similarly, if I have a layout that I like, I want to use, this is my regular layout for rack diagrams, I can save this as a template. And then whenever I create a new doc, I can use my templates. So I like to use one for meeting notes, for example, and it will create a new document with my typical meeting notes layout. And then you can also connect the work that your team is doing to strategy. So within my board, I can connect this work to a goal, or to a strategic planning lens structure. So you would tie it to the work entity of your work structure. Here, we're tying it to the HR department, but you can tie it to your product, your strategic program, or your portfolio. And then when you open your strategic planning workspace, you'll be able to see your CWM board alongside your other planning items such as projects, demands, epics. So you'll see here that we see a prioritized list of different planning items, and you can do roadmap planning against different types of work. So that's how you can connect the work that your team is doing in CWM with the strategic outcomes that you're working towards. You get the structure and strategic alignment at enterprise level, but the flexibility for your teams to work how they want. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lillian. Thank you everyone for putting so many questions in the Q&A. Keep them coming. We'd love to see that. I was trying to answer as many as fast as I could. And so now let's move on to implementing CWM. So this has been asked a couple times in the chat, but people are asking who has access to this. And so anyone with either a CWM or an SPM license does have access to CWM. So it's included at no additional cost for your SPM users. And then if you have other users who don't have an SPM license and who just need access to CWM, they can be licensed via the standalone CWM license. Which will give them access to the CWM module. And then when they have that, they can do the agile planning that you saw for single teams. For my work, they'll see the CWM tasks and stories that have been assigned to them. But if they have SPM, they would see all of the SPM tasks. Similarly, with connected work, you can obviously pull in whatever other work you have license to. So if you have CWM and ITSM and you are assigned incidents, you can see that in connected work. But if you don't have access to SPM, you aren't going to be able to pull in, SPM work items that you don't have access to. So actually, the implementation of CWM itself is very simple. It can be done in just 5 minutes. If you scan this QR code, it'll take you to our implementation guide. It's also, again, linked in our quick start guide, which is easy to find on Community. We have implementation walkthrough video as well as step-by-step. But at a high level, really the only two required steps are just to install the plugin as well as assign the CWM role to your users. And then there's a couple optional steps that we recommend. One is that you could set up a workflow to grant role access, as well as the ability for your end users to request access to CWM. And then if you have SPM, we recommend that you set up that connection that Lillian just showed between CWM and SPW or PPW, where you can see it on your portfolio. And then lastly, we saw the ability to mention other record types within docs, and that's a configurable table as well. So you can select which types of tables can be mentioned in docs. But again, all of that, including the optional steps, very quick and easy to do. So great to get started and give it a try if you haven't already. Next, we want to talk about use cases a bit. So CWM is very flexible for many different use cases, not just in IT, but also in other parts of the organization. We hear a lot of different variation in the use cases that our customers are using. But in case you're, wanting some inspiration, we have a deck available on Community where our use case guide, you guessed it's in the quick start guide link there, and it will walk you through some of the examples that we've seen with customers. Generally, what we kind of hear as kind of common themes are teams that are doing what the organization will call non-project work. So it's something that doesn't quite meet all the criteria of a project, doesn't need the full functionality of a project, or it's maybe for kind of ad hoc work that comes up, or for teams who are managing multiple different work types. So just like we saw with CWM, there with the example that Lillian just showed, where you have multiple types of work where normally you'd be having to go into different workspaces. So with these example deck here, we have kind of explanations on each of them. So the example we just saw was around this infrastructure team. who have a mix of planned and operational work, as well as they kind of want to add some ad hoc work and be able to manage their work in sprints, as well as create custom columns to help them organize their work the way that they want. Another example of this would be site reliability engineers. They might have a major incident, and that might result in some follow-up action items that they don't really have a good place for, that might fall through the cracks. Maybe different teams need to have visibility into the work that each team is doing. Here, they can use connected work to pull in incidents and problems that are related, but they also can add their own tasks. They may want to plan and track their reviews, as well as work on operational tickets. And they might need to collaborate on like audit responses as well. Uh, a lot of times people may kind of initially have some confusion over which application they should be doing their work in. So collaborative work management, more for lightweight task tracking. If you want to manage other work types and leverage connected work, that would be a good place for CWM. Shared meeting notes, end user configurations, the ability to have kind of those different views, list, Gantt, Kanban, or Sprint. And then these are more for work that do not require resourcing or financials. Project workspace is more meant for the structured work where you do require resourcing and financials. You want to build out your WBS levels, dependencies, have RIDAC and status reports, and then project workspace is more Gantt view. And then finally, SPW or PPW, that is more for kind of planning multiple, like a higher level of work. So planning at the project, demand, Epic, and CWM boards all in one portfolio, as well as the ability to set goals and targets. Within PPW, you can also prioritize and score your work, as well as plan your roadmap, and then also managing project feedback, and then EAP as well. So that brings us to our Agile planning section. So this is kind of our vision for Agile planning and how CWM and EAP will connect. And I know I saw this question in the chat a bit. So EAP is more for the kind of team of teams level planning. This is where you are going to start planning your PI, creating your goals and objectives for that PI. Then you're going to break down your work into epics and stories and place them in the different sprints. You're also, again, doing that cross-team planning here. So if you have cross-team dependencies, those will be managed in EAP. Once that sprint is kind of set, that will go down to CWM. And so in CWM, you'll be able to see that sprint and plan and execute it there, as well as pull in your planned or unplanned operational work that may impact your sprint. And then within CWM, you can kind of fine tune the sprint. You can move things around. If you have to create additional stories or epics, you'll be able to do that there. And then that will continuously sync to EAP, where you'll be able to see the sprint progress and capacity. And then in both, you have the ability to kind of do a retrospective, so either at the team or the PI level. And then within EAP, maybe the things that happened in that PI are going to impact your roadmap and your planning for your next PI. So the cycle kind of begins again. So this is a bit of a forward-looking view. The sync between EAP and CWM is planned for our November release. So it'll be out very soon. Right now, the sprints that are made in CWM are not connected to EAP, but that again is going to be changing in November. So again, kind of what you're looking at here with EAP and CWM. EAP is more at the higher level planning. CWM is more at the single team planning where you're pulling in stories, tasks, and connected work. But again, come November, those will be synced. So the stories that you're placed on your sprints in EAP will be reflected in CWM. Changes that you make in CWM will be continuously reflected in EAP. And then even further down the line, we're actually going to have CWM be embedded within EAP. So for your teams who are, maybe primarily working in EAP, but need to look down into that CWM level, that will just be the Teams tab in EAP, and they'll be able to, use CWM without it feeling like they're ever even using a different tool. It will be completely embedded and unified across those two. Thank you again so much for joining. And please feel free to reach out, put comments on community if you have any questions.
Yep, we'll continue to answer questions here in the Q&A and chat. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.